Howdy, it's Jim Murado, and this is late February 2024. We're at Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. We're actually right at the Mammoth Cave National Park Visitor Center, and they were offering, I think, for all of February, for Black History Month, just about every day, they were doing a couple of tours, kind of a caravan tour, down to the Bransford Family Cemetery. And this is actually us lining up. We lined up right behind. There's two National Park Rangers in that truck, and we're following them down Flint Ridge Road, which is pretty significant road, not too far from the Mammoth Cave National Park Visitor Center. If you go down this road long enough, you'll get to Floyd Collins' grave. And before that, if you're coming from the Visitor Center, you'll also get to the Bransford Family Cemetery. And they just, within the last, not very long ago, they put up a monument to the Bransford family. 5 generations of tour guides at Mammoth Cave. Jerry Bransford just retired, I want to say within the last year, and it looks like that puts an end to that string of tour guides, unless one of his descendants decides to be a tour guide too. But that goes back to literally some of the original, I guess you could really say the original mappers of the cave, with his, a couple of greats that were related to him who were slave guides. And that is something special. I've mentioned Jerry Bransford on my blog and on my YouTube channel many times. Met him a few times, corresponded with him. A very fascinating and pleasant individual. And it's kind of sad that he no longer works for the national park, but his presence is still there, as is his family's. And we're going down to see this monument. We're going down to see the family cemetery. It's a very short walk. In fact, now that I know where it's at, I might try to go down there again. You kind of park on a little side street, and then you walk out to the cemetery. It's a nice 10-15 minute walk, even if you take your time. Kind of downhill on the way there, uphill on the way back, but it's not too bad. And we spent probably a little over an hour with these two tour guides once we got there, and we had a fairly casual conversation. I guess that's the best way to put it. These park rangers, as you will tell, are very excited about the cave and its history and the Bransford family. And I'm also very excited about those topics. I love reading about the cave and its history. So we get sidetracked a few times. Of course, Floyd Collins comes up, the cave, a couple of other topics, but for the most part, we were there to see the Bransford Family Cemetery. One thing I want to mention is we do talk about Jerry Bransford, who, again, he's a legend. He just retired. And he's one of those legendary people that you almost talk about him. He's so legendary that it almost sounds like we're talking about somebody from decades ago who has recently passed, or it's he's still alive and well, but his legend is he's legendary, and it's just kind of funny how we talk about him. But yeah, so Jerry Bransford's still around, and obviously one of the guides talks about how he's gone out here and done some touring around with him, and films Jerry talking about his family, and that's pretty cool. I hope to see some of those videos. I'm sure they're good. Jerry's a nice guy. The first time I sent him a note, and he responded by sending me a nice letter and also a couple of DVDs about the cave. And that's the kind of guy he is. And that's one of the many reasons that people will always talk about him in such a way. And not to mention his legacy and his family's legacy. And again, this is what they call a caravan tour. My wife and I were the only ones that took up the National Park Service on this offer on this particular day. It's a free thing they were offering throughout February. They offer similar things throughout the year, but yeah, this was free, and we came out and we enjoyed it. They offer a similar caravan tour for Floyd Collins at certain times of the year. I've put another video up on that elsewhere, so you can check that out if you'd like. But today we're definitely focusing on the Bransford family. Again, we had some great guides, and I'm going to keep this again fairly casual. But let me know what you think about it. I enjoyed talking to these guys and got a lot of information, and I just enjoyed doing this little free excursion at Mammoth Cave National Park. Just another great reason to go to Mammoth Cave.
This is a photo of the Bransford Summer Resort, which the Bransford family lived on this ridge. This is Flint Ridge. You know, we went down a valley and up from the visitor center. That's Mammoth Ridge. This is Flint Ridge. And Flint Ridge was the whole Bransford family settled over here. And of course they would just walk across the valley and go to work each day, or ride a horse or mule to work. But this was built later on, after the Civil War, actually the early 1900s. It was, I think, the third generation of the Bransford family. Segregation was still going on, so there still wasn't many people allowing, you know, black people to stay in the hotels. So they built their own just right down this road. Probably, what, another quarter of a mile down this road it would be on the right. And they called it their Bransford Summer Resort, and his name was Matt Bransford. There's several Matts in the family, but his wife Zimmy, it was kind of a unique name, but Matt and Zimmy, and they said she was an amazing cook. I guess her reputation preceded among the whole communities out here. So if you stayed at this hotel, you were going to be fed awesome. And what was it, $2.50?
$2.50 per day.
Yeah, for to stay at the resort. But they also said that, if a colored family showed up and didn't have the money, they'd still let them stay anyway.
That's nice.
They said they still wanted them to be able to stay. So I wanted to show you this down this trail. Oh, here comes somebody.
I was thinking the same thing.
They're moving. They're probably just Are there any remnants of the house still there, or totally nothing?
Totally nothing.
No.
That's sad. If there's remnants, I always think, what it mean if they could rebuild
There's
it?
a pump house. There's a Bransford pump house where they would have gotten water. And I have hiked to the old pump house in the spring. That's pretty much the only thing that's there. Yeah.
I think these are just hikers.
Yeah, I think they're getting their exercise this morning.
Yeah, they're not up to anything mischievous.
Now, do watch your step.
Sure.
I don't know. This first part's gravel, wood chip, but with all the rain and stuff, I'm sure it's washed out of the top layer, and there might be some muddy spots. So just watch your step. Okay. And I don't know if you've been over here on Flint Ridge much, but several years back we had bad windstorms, then ice storms, and it's blown a lot of trees down. So this area has really taken a hit over the last several years.
Yeah.
So you'll see a lot of trees down.
Last year was pretty bad.
Yeah, when we had that windstorm.
Yeah.
We had a windstorm which was unreal. It actually closed the whole park for 3 days. All the roads were blocked.
Hey, did they ever catch the guy that graffitied the door down at the main entrance? Did that happen right at COVID?
I don't know.
I was thinking, surely there's some security or something, some cameras that would have caught him.
I know they have cameras, but I don't know if they ever caught the guy. I'm gonna put these on. My ears are cold.
I should have brought a scarf. But I'm good.
This is actually a short walk. It's maybe a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that the windstorm that hit, I think it was sometime last year, we had 80-mile-an-hour winds for about 4 or 5 hours straight.
We had roof damage on that one.
Did you? It blew my chicken coop over. It took me about 2 hours to get home. Normally it takes me 25 minutes. Every road I turned on, there was people with chainsaws trying to cut through.
I work on the west side of town. There's a lot of old growth trees on that side, so we lost a lot of power in the area where I work. And at the time, I was working at a senior living community, so we were, making arrangements for our seniors. I work in a hotel now.
It's like he talked those two other people coming with us. My name's Jackie, by the way.
Oh.
I'm Jackie, and that is Quentin.
Okay.
And
I'm Jim.
Right here is where you can really see where all these trees were blown down. Just roots and all. Just kind of blew everything over.
It's just unbelievable.
Our winds are like hurricane level.
It was hurricane-style winds, and that's
really unusual.
Kentucky's
for
not
us.
built for that.
No.
Was there ever talk of trying to open up, not Sand Cave, but the other one, the other Floyd Collins?
Crystal?
Yeah, was there ever
Crystal
talk
Cave?
about trying to get that one going again?
They have discussed it. I'm a tour guide. I'm not in management, so I don't know where they're at on that, but I do know it's been discussed. I do know that it is something that they are considering.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know if they've made any decisions. I was in it last Friday for 11 hours.
Wow.
I went to Floyd's Lost Passage, actually,
Oh.
on a research trip.
I just read the 1955 book, the Buckner book.
The C3 expedition?
Yes.
Well, that's what this week, last week was the 70th anniversary.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So I went in and we helped document the stuff they left at the camps that are 70 years old. You convinced them to come along? Awesome.
We're out here just, we're running and just exploring every little offshoot that we can find.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Oh, don't let me mess up your...
Wait, no, I think you're covering some ground. I saw you like way back there as we drove in.
Yeah. She's doing 26 today.
What?
26 miles today.
Oh, holy cow.
Doing the marathon.
We're out here almost every week. Somewhere.
I was informing them a little bit more of the history of Madison and Henry and them.
Okay.
They'll definitely get to the cemetery faster than we will.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I was telling them about the windstorm. And,
Look at all that. Wow.
we had trees down like years before from an ice storm, but then the windstorm just really tore this place up. Roger Buck.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be...
Roger Brucker was here,
was he?
and Roger McClure was here.
Oh.
They were two of the original
Yeah.
ones. And so we actually took them in the Crystal Cave,
Oh.
where Floyd's casket used to sit, which is just a short piece in. And if they ever do open up Crystal for tours,
Yeah.
it would probably just be that short section. They're not going to be taking people on long trips there, just because it's too pristine and fragile. But we got to hear them reminisce and tell stories. and then the next day, a bunch
Was
of
that
us-
open to the public or anything? It seems like things happen and I always found out about them after the fact.
Well,
It's-
it was.
It wasn't like advertised.
Okay.
No, the Cave Research Foundation, it was more of a special weekend for them
yeah.
to celebrate that, because it led to the foundation of
Yeah.
the Cave Research Foundation.
I just read that book. I found an older copy at a used bookstore. And
The longest cave.
The Caves Beyond.
yes,
Beyond.
yes. I've read. There's 2 or 3 books that are all kind of similar.
Yeah.
You know, and it when Skeets shows up in that book, I'm like,
Yeah,
it's kind of a big deal, you know.
For sure.
yeah, man. In the '54 expedition, he would have been the old man on the trip.
Yeah. But that would have only been 30 years after the fact, which is, I say only 30, you know, in my perception of time.
Right.
But
So Roger Brucker sat down and told us a story that he got to sit and talk with Skeets in the cave about when Skeets was trying to rescue Floyd, and he.
So cool.
So I videotaped it. I
oh,
got to hear him reminisce a little bit about that.
yeah,
Steve looked like he was a handsome man too in all the photos
yeah.
I've ever seen of him.
Well, and of course, people back then, you know, in nature, people were smaller. You know,
True,
yeah.
true.
Just and to me, he always seems like just obviously a small guy to do what he did.
Very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
kind of, just slender.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you know,
Didn't have McDonald's or Wendy's
Yeah.
or any of those other
Yes.
things.
yeah, Jerry. I wrote him a letter like years ago, just like, you know, what a fascinating guy, and he ended up sending me his number
They
and
said they contributed to the
Yeah,
to
I
the
heard from
monument.
them,
Yeah.
this morning.
If you don't mind, we'll stop just briefly
Sure.
here.
What a good picture.
We've got this good little display that talks about the 5 generations.
Thank you for
Got a picture here. I took that photo.
Did you? Oh, nice.
But yeah, so you've got the different generations here, and this just if visitors are out hiking and don't know the story like you guys
Yeah.
might know the story, y'all have already got the background because you've already talked to Jerry and stuff. But if visitors are just out hiking and come up on this cemetery, at least this is here to help them understand, you know, this is the Bransford family, the tradition that this family had for generation after generation.
See you guys later.
Bye. Good luck.
I love the couple of things that it says here. I like the part where it says Jerry had not realized how closely bound his family had been to Mammoth Cave. He had always heard the stories and come here some as a kid. He knew his family grew up here, but until he started working here and actually walking the passageways and seeing his great-great-grandfather's name written in all these different places, then he knew, hey, this is my legacy. We like to tease him a little bit, you know. We nickname him the Legacy when he comes into the visitor center sometimes. The Legacy's here. But then he's like, no. Very humble guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is first generation of the Bransford family. This is Matt, and this is Nick. Matt and Nick. Actually, Matterson and Nick. And there's, I think that same photo
Yeah, it's right there.
is the same photo in here.
Oh, that's yeah.
So this photo, I believe, was taken in Louisville when he went up to Louisville and had his photo taken. And this is what we would call, you know, kind of old Matt. Because when they started here, they were probably 18, 19 years old, somewhere in that. And you probably also heard about Stephen Bishop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Stephen was here guiding, and then they were brought here. Matt and Nick were brought up from Nashville, Tennessee. They obviously were slaves. They were enslaved men from Nashville, and I'll just keep this out. They guided tours. They also helped greet people coming off the boats at the boat dock. Eventually, they were allowed to settle over here. Actually started, getting married, getting land. The owner of the cave, he was, even though they were slaves, they were allowed things that maybe further down south on the big cotton fields and tobacco farms and stuff, they weren't allowed as much. They were at least allowed to get married, to have a little bit of their own property and do some farming and actually make money for themselves. Stephen gained his freedom through Dr. Cron's will, but Matt and Nick weren't Dr. Cron's property, so they actually didn't gain their freedom until after the Civil War, until slaves were freed, until the 1860s. So then that's when they kind of started settling. 2 or 3 years after the Civil War, Matt marries Parthena, which is another, I think, pretty cool name. So they got married. The times I've been out here with Jerry, he talks about, and I've walked down, there's a little spring that flows just in this little draw, this low spot here. There's a little spring, and so they would have gotten water down here. He said they would have cut timber and logged and sold timber. They would have had part of this land plowed up for crops. I mean, they were self-sustaining family, and whatever extra they had, they would sell. I've also heard stories that even though there was a whole African-American community that was settling over here, there were also several other white families that lived over here. And even though it was big in segregation and stuff, they said the Flint Ridge community truly was a community. There were times where if one of the Bransfords were sick, even the white neighbors would come and feed the kids and plow the fields. If it was time to pick the corn, they'd come and pick the corn for them and stuff. And vice versa. If one of them got sick, all the Bransfords would go over and work their farm for a week until they recovered. So they truly did kind of just help each other out. They were all good neighbors up here. Let's go see the monument.
Oh, sure.
I know you want to look at it.
I've always thought I can see the resemblance. Like there's
Yes.
a couple of them that you can kind of feel that family connection. They're just looking at their faces.
And Jerry actually was contacted by a family in Texas who are, this is a white family, but they are descendants of Thomas Bransford, who owned them in Nashville.
Oh, okay.
Well, Thomas was also their father. So they were of mixed race.
Yeah.
Thomas had children with the slave women. I mean, just got to tell it the way it was.
Yeah.
Don't try to cover it up, but that's what was happening. But he was contacted by a family in Texas who was also related to Mr. Thomas in Nashville, and said, we have ledgers and documents all about Matt and them and stuff. And so he went to visit them, and so not only does he have the stories of them being here at Mammoth Cave, but he also has a whole lot of information beyond that too. To kind of fill in a lot of the blanks that he never knew about. So it was awesome hearing all those stories. And what's sad is Matt and Parthena, they had lots of children. Some of them were sold.
Yeah.
They got back some of them they didn't. But one of the young girls that came back with a baby, and that's just this gentleman right here, Will Bransford. And what's amazing about Will is and it's probably the same thing. He's very light complected. His father would have been white. But they said that he had such a reputation around here. He was actually chosen by the owners of Mammoth Cave to represent Mammoth Cave, Kentucky at the Chicago World's Fair.
Wow.
And so he went up there on the train and stayed in the hotels, and he took all kinds of stuff from Mammoth Cave to display at the Chicago World's Fair. That was the big World's Fair that was lit up by Thomas Edison, electricity and everything was going on. So it was a really big deal in the 1890s for him to go. So that's just one of the side stories from the family here. And we also we'll walk over to a grave that is this gentleman right here, Henry.
Okay.
So we're going to go to Henry's grave
Okay.
over here, which was Matt's son.
Okay.
Clinton, you fill in any blanks. If
Okay, yeah, sure.
If you want to help, we'll tag team it.
Put these back on. Put the room up back on.
Yeah. I love the etching.
Yeah.
Talking with Jerry, this monument, it's about 6,000 pounds. Granite came from India.
Oh, wow.
Came from India.
Here at the bottom has all 5 generations, all the names.
Jerry right here. This is Matt's, or 2T Matt's. There's Will that went to the 1893 World's Fair. There's Henry, which is that gentleman that is laid to rest right over there. And of course, Matterson and Nicholas as well.
And the Matthew Bransford is the one that had the hotel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, we were here. I mean, we were here every couple of months, and one of the guides roughly told us where it was at, but they warned us of ticks. It was warmer at the time,
Yes.
and I'm a tick magnet, so we thought, we'll save this for another day. So I'm glad this tour's going on, so we can incorporate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of my favorite photos from the dedication ceremony of the monument right here is of the Bransford family that also came out for the presentation. You have this big, huge, just family photo of all of them surrounding the monument right here with Jerry just right to the side. Just absolutely amazing.
And they had a table set up here with photos, some of these photos on the table, and he had a bell, and he said one thing he wanted to do is he wanted to ring the bell 5 times for the 5 generations of his family. So, I mean, there were, how many people was here? Maybe 100 or so?
Probably.
A lot of people,
Over
but
100.
I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. Only thing you heard was ding, ding. It was quite moving. Quite moving. And what it must have meant to Jerry to get that done.
Yeah.
This was a 10-year project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I communicated with him. It's a while back, and he mentioned it. And then I wanted to come and take one of his tours, but he wasn't here on the weekends, so I got to see the history. He did the kind of part of the historic one, and that was a treat. But it's when you talk about legends and legacies, that's something that having that 5 generations going back all the way,
to before the Civil War.
Yes.
And as we like to acknowledge as well, just even knowing of that history. Because especially folks of the African American community, some of them don't have that history that they can look back to.
Yes.
So to have that long history that Jerry can look back on is just absolutely incredible. There's one story of when Jerry was here in the 1950s, 1960s. His dad and his mom had drove out here, actually right out to the Great Onyx Road up here, and stopped at the gate. his dad had rolled down the windows and everything and just kind of sat there for a couple minutes in silence. Jerry, he was about 10 years old at this point, he says. He didn't know exactly why they were here, but his mom said just sit quiet for a couple minutes and then we'll go on. Later, he would learn that the reason that he was stopping there, at least his dad was stopping there and kind of just sitting there, he was reminiscing of his childhood. Because Great Onyx Road is where Jerry's dad grew up. He remembered running up and down that gravel road back there in just no shoes at all, just running around. This was his home, so he was kind of sitting there reminiscing of his childhood. And Jerry goes on to say they go over to the Mammoth Cave Hotel, and they know Jerry's dad. It had only been just about a decade, maybe 15 years since the Bransfords had left Mammoth Cave, so they knew of Jerry's dad, but they didn't serve him in the hotel. They said, well, we want some ice cream. They said, oh, well, if you will, because I think his dad's name was David?
David, yeah.
David. They said, well, David, if you will, come around back. Come to the back door, we'll get you some ice cream. So that's what they ended up having to do. So Jerry and them had to walk outside, get their ice cream, and then walk back inside so that they could actually
That's probably
eat.
the story I'm thinking of.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for clearing that up.
No
Yeah.
problem, no problem.
You know what's great is that he's still alive, and we're telling Jerry Bransford stories.
Absolutely, yes.
That's legendary.
This fourth generation, you got Elsie and Arthur, Clifton, George. Clifton Bransford, not only was he a guide at Mammoth Cave, but during the Great Depression joined the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was Company 510, which was the African American camp here at Mammoth Cave that built a lot of the trails in the cave. And this is his signature. This is right off the historic route.
Is that seen on any of the tours?
You can't really see it from the trail.
If you have a keen eye, you will see
If you know
it.
exactly where to look, you know it's there and you can find it. But yeah, most people they would never know.
Never.
But yeah, so this is just proof that Clifton also not only just guided tours here, but actually played a role in building the trails and developing the park to become a national park with during the Great Depression. Yeah, last year before he left, I spent 2 or 3 days with him, just me and him, and we went all through the park to.
Here, I'll take care of it.
And we just videotaped him telling stories.
Yeah.
And then he wants me to take all those videos and put together and put in our archives, so when new rangers get hired, they can watch his story in his own words, talk about what's here at the cemetery. I think they say they counted 47, 48 graves here.
I think so.
That they know of, and there's probably more that might be on the outskirts of this.
You know, as you look at this and you see the humps, I mean, it and the humble markers.
Just a field stone. They're not engraved. The only 2 that are engraved are the 2 over here.
And I assume no records of who's where.
No. We don't know specifics of a lot of these.
Daffodils.
They're starting to come up right there.
Daffodils. So anytime you see like daffodils within the park, I don't know how much y'all know about those, but of course if you see daffodils or such, that's a place where a homestead used to be. Since they were a decorative plant that came back every single year, you didn't have to go out and buy new plants. So if you ever see those yellow daffodils out in the park, that used to be where a household used to be, maybe a store, some kind of fronts used to be right there and used to have those plants. So especially right here, seeing those daffodils there, they had planted those there whenever that person had passed away, so they made sure they always had flowers at their grave sites. Just popping up too, just popping up.
This was during the dedication. They got the monument covered.
Now for a moment of silence as a tribute to these old folks who are laying this earth up here. Old folks who gave everything in by 1941 was forced off their land shortly after. It's almost as though that they never had an identity for life. Okay, thank you so much for that.
I think.
So we're going to have a formal unveiling of the
Yeah. They
Okay.
unveil it.
So I'm supposing that I'm the last on the program, unless Superintendent or Dave or something have anything else to say. We're going to start to exit the cemetery, and I also want to remind you that we have a social gathering at the training center.
I just wanted to show you that little clip there of it.
Thank you.
I forgot I had that on. Now, every time I'm out here with Jerry, he always tells me the same story. And I don't tell him, Jerry, you said that last time. You said that every 10 times we come. No, I just let him tell the story again.
I do too.
But every time he's here, he says he really believes, he said there's no way he can prove it, but he honestly believes that right here is Matterson and Parthena.
Oh.
The original Matterson Bransford of the first generation. He said he can't prove it, but I mean, Henry's son is right. I mean, Matt, if this is where Matt's buried, that's his son, who were buried right next to him. So he thinks that they were just buried together, and it's just a feeling that he has. So I thought I'd pass that on.
Well, thank
to
you.
as well.
Yeah.
Now, Henry, when he passed away, his wife Alice got these headstones and had them engraved. Henry was a tour guide at Mammoth Cave for about 20 years. And that is depicted on the headstone. It just says one word describing Henry, God. He was very, they really felt connected to what they did in the cave.
Yeah.
That they led people through the cave. Jerry will talk about, here's this family that come from slavery taking royalty and different people of notoriety through the cave.
Yeah. It's a beautiful stone too. It's just
It is.
Yeah.
Marble?
Looks like it.
I believe so.
Now Henry had a huge reputation of working non-stop.
Yes, he did.
He would get up in the morning and cut timber before walking over to Mammoth Cave and guiding tours all day. And then they said then he would come home in the evening, walking back, get here in the evening and tend to the fields by lantern light at night for the crops.
Or if it was a full moon, by the moonlight.
Yeah. And there is a photo of Henry in this.
You'll see he passed away at the age of 49, so he was still relatively young. That's him at the historic entrance
That's
right
coming
there.
out of the cave.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he's on the stairs right there.
Yeah.
And you see he's got his lantern in his right hand.
What a great
or
picture.
Left hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great picture.
Thank you.
But yeah, he just, I mean, according to Jerry, he worked himself to death.
He really did.
Until he had a heart attack.
Wow.
So will there be another grave here? I see a
I
footstone.
wonder as well.
There's a footstone and a headstone on the
Yeah.
other side of that
I'm
one.
not quite sure. Also, there's a penny here, now that I realize.
course, back then you got outbreaks like typhoid fever and cholera and tuberculosis and stuff. So there were a lot of babies that are buried here that died in infancy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's some here, or maybe it was kind of like a perimeter that went around, because some grave sites will kind of have like kind of stone out in the
Yeah.
That might be cornerstones. You got one
Yes.
over there.
Yes.
That's what he just
That's what
mentioned.
you-
I
yeah.
was asking if there's another grave, but
I was wondering
it
that
might
as
be
we-
just a boundary for these two.
Because when I went here recently, I went over to Matthew, or 2T Matt, the one that owned this hotel right here. He's buried in Glasgow at the Oddfellows Cemetery. Both him and Zimmy are buried right there. I went and visited them just last week, and they have that. They have kind of like a stone kind of square around their grave site as well. So maybe that's what's going on, but to say for sure, not quite for sure. But this would be, if anywhere, this would be also a perfect place for me right here.
If you guys have like GPR or anything come out to try to map stuff out, or
So
I don't even know if that's very accurate.
there
but-
used to be, you know, the websites that our Science and Resource Management put together, Jackie, of each of the cemeteries within the park. So our Science and Resource Management put together this program, because there's over 90 cemeteries in the park, and they had went through and GPS coordinated it, so you can look at like a picture of like a Google Maps photo of Mammoth Cave, and you can zoom in all the way to the cemetery, and it has all the squares, and you can click individually on each gravestone. You can see exactly who is there.
If they know.
If they know. Some of them will just say unknown, but will document that someone is right there. I don't know if they've actually done that here for the Bransford Cemetery or not, because I came out a couple years ago.
They've had like University of Kentucky, Western Kentucky University. That we partner with some of the universities that has the equipment to find, graves. Because I remember coming out here with Jerry like 20 years ago, when we're just bushwhacking through the forest. Actually, the original trail is back here, and we would come from the main road, from Flint Ridge Road, and we would walk through. And when we got here, we finally found Henry's grave, and we could not see anything else because it was this high of thickets. Just everywhere right here.
Yeah.
This was not cleared like it is today. It was, imagine just walking out there through the briars and thickets. I mean, we could stand 10 feet from this and almost not see it. From me to you, it would be hard to see it. So we finally found it, and then over the last 20 years, they've been coming out here a couple of times each summer and just cleaning up part of it, and then cleaning up a little bit more. And the more they started cleaning up, the more they started realizing, oh, these rocks are actually filled stones of other graves.
Yeah.
And then once they started cleaning up more, they started finding all the rows. And so it was really just the effort of volunteers and friends of Mr. Bransford coming out here and just helping restore this.
And it's spectacular. It's clean, but it has such a primitive feel still.
Like you said, Jackie, there's someone all the way out here as well.
But there's probably more than what we know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's wonderful that this much is known.
Did you mention Jerry still comes out here every year, and they'll have volunteers come out here and clean this up in the springtime and such?
They'll have a couple of work weekends where some of us, if it's our day off, we'll just meet him out here, and we'll clean up. If little tree saplings start to grow up, we'll cut those off, cut back the briars, and kind of clean up the graves a little bit.
He wants to, I was talking with Jerry recently, he wants to get a path made out to Will Bransford's gravesite, because it's just right down from Great Onyx Road. It's right down the road as well. But again, it was kind of like the situation for this cemetery. You have to bushwhack
Yeah.
your way out to
Yeah.
get to it. And I think Will's the only one out there that I know of.
Yep, I've been to it a couple of times, and the last time I went out to it, I was standing from me to you, and I was like, "Where is it? Where is it?" And I was about ready to give up, and then I walked right by it, and I was like, "Oh," because I was afraid a tree fell on it.
Right.
I was out at Cave Hill Cemetery a few weeks ago, and I was trying to find Joshua Speed. You know, and I couldn't find it. And I looked at the coordinates. I went to findagrave.com, and I had to have been close, but we had to give up our search.
That's a great cemetery.
Yes. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, several of the former owners of Mammoth Cave are buried there. Dr. Cron's buried there.
There's a lot of people. Is that the one all the way up in Louisville?
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. There's a lot of notable people.
Oh, and of course, I mean, you've got Muhammad Ali and Colonel Sanders, of course, but there's so many just other Civil War related people and just other historic figures that.
And George Rogers Clark.
I was about to say, is George Roger Clark there?
More importantly than fried chicken and sports.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I know. It's I've got a friend, and every few months we try to go out and find some more out there.
It's very peaceful.
Yeah.
Very humble. I love it out here. And I love that they put a bench out here as well. Oh, there is another one there.
Could be one.
My wife stumbles across all sorts of stuff when we're.
Growing up, my dad did a lot of family genealogy work, and so I grew up going to old cemeteries, hunting for graves.
We've had a couple of workshops over the last few years of cleaning headstones. Where we'll have people come in and actually show us how to do it officially. So you don't damage anything, you use the correct brushes and chemicals and stuff like that.
They went through and reset my family's headstone in the park doing that. I have a family headstone at the Little Hope Cemetery.
Oh no! Are you talking about the one here, Little Hope? Yeah, the one right down the road, really. Yeah. Okay.
So my family, that's my great grandfather that's buried right there. And their headstone, actually it's both my grandparents, my 3 times great grandparents. But they were laid to rest there, but their actual headstone had broken off and was sitting kind of like tilted against like kind of the base of it, and it had been that way for years. And eventually I talked to Educatus. He was what was his actual title? I can't even remember.
Yeah, cultural resource manager.
There you go.
Yeah.
I talked to him. He goes, "You're talking Little Hope, right?" Yeah. He goes, "Give me the name. I'll be out there tomorrow." I was like, "Okay." Literally no time. 2 days later, he had sent me photos. Already been out there, reset the headstone, and even cleaned it. Made it a surprise for my grandmother. I didn't tell her about it until she went and saw it, and she said she just really broke down. She then went and told every family member to go out to Mammoth Cave and check out the headstone that had been fixed. One of my family members actually canceled their flight just so they could come out and just see that gravestone. Because yes, it was my great-great-grandfather, and I only know a little bit of them just from here at the park, but my grandmother and the rest of my family knew stories of him. So to hear that his headstone had been fixed and everything was truly just really a touching moment. My grandmother still thanks me to this day for it.
What a great story.
Yeah.
That's a neat looking cemetery. We always take note of it as we go by.
It's got some beautiful headstones out there. There is one thing about the Little Hope Cemetery that I wish that we could fix, or at least work on fixing, is that on the outskirts of the cemetery, you also see little stones out there in the woods that are grown up just on the outskirts edge. that has not been cleaned out, or there's trees falling down through it. It just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So anytime I go out there, not only to see my family, but I also walk out there to show them some appreciation.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and what'd you think? Thanks for hanging out with me for that video. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking to these guys about not just the Bransfords, but the Mammoth Cave, some of the other history that we talked about, and the other cemeteries. 90 cemeteries out in that area. Loved the daffodil story too. I thought that was great, and just had a really good time. I did edit out a little bit when we started talking about genealogy and that sort of thing, but I tried to keep this mostly complete. So I hope you appreciated that, and make sure you get out to Mammoth Cave as soon as you can. There's so much more to do there than just the caves.